a special calling on you to provide value to other people. That, in fact, is what drives free market capitalism, is that every man in that field, every man on the earth has someone to serve. If you look out the window of your office right now, look down into the street, and you will see cars and trucks passing by. Everybody behind every wheel, I'm willing to bet you, is there because that person, man or woman, has got to get somewhere else to help somebody do something. So all the traffic that you see, all the movement of cars and trucks and people scurrying about on the street, on the sidewalk near you, they're there to serve somebody else. Often the service receives a financial reward in the way of a check or deposit or payment. Much of that service, of course, though, is personal, but still, the people moving about and people in the economy, in local economy here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, are serving other people. And that is what capitalism is. That's what the free market is all about. Having that service take place with as little interference, as little intervention by the good people as possible. Clay Posey is 56. He's a small business coach and entrepreneurship coach. He works right now as director of business development at Surf Pro, which is a company that has a lot of demand on its services right now in the way of storm damage cleanup. It's a specialist in that, a national chain, and there is a local franchise here in Chattanooga for whom Clay works. Clay, what is the idea of genius and gift that my listener overlooks in his own life? How is it that he can take what he has kind of built into him by God's grace and by his experiences that make him serviceable to other people? And how, if he's serviceable to other people, can he create a profit for himself and a sustainable business for himself, Clay?
Well, there's a couple of ways, David, that can happen. The biggest problem we have is we are no longer human beings. God made us human beings. America and the economy that we have now and the specialization that we have has turned us all into human doings. And we're so busy doing, we don't ever have time to really think about who we are and who we were created to be. A little bit of stopping, a little bit of personal reflection is in order to look at, what am I good at? What do I care about? And how have I helped people in the past? Another way you can approach that, if you say, well, I really can't identify anything that way, is look around you for a need that needs to be met. The company that I work for, my regular job right now, that's how it was formed. And it was a mom and pop. It's now a nationwide, actually international business. It started off as a guy in his garage who said, you know what, when a house burns, somebody's got to go clean up that mess and somebody's got to put it back together. And he saw a need and figured out a way to fulfill it and has become successful beyond his wildest dreams. But you don't even have to do that. You can just look at it and you can say, well, here's a need. People need somebody to help them pack and move boxes, and I can do that. And then suddenly you have a side income. And it may always be a side income, or it may be able to turn into something more. People need their grass cut or their dog walked. There's all kinds of things. If you look for a need, people will pay you to be able to do that, because what they're really buying from you is not walking the dog. They're buying their time back. You're taking care of a task for them that they don't want to deal with, and you're giving them their time back to do whatever it is they want to do.
And the more imaginative my listener is, Clay, the more things he can imagine himself doing in the service of others, because the idea of service is you're looking at someone's doing, someone's circumstances, someone's life. You're asking questions. So how's it going with you? And you're kind of soaking in their story. And as you see their story, you can probably see two or three things that are perhaps needs that you could meet. And some of those, maybe just one of those, would be one that could be a future service that becomes a business.
Right. And that's it. It's all about value, and it's all about building that relationship. And you look at the people that you have now. Everybody's got a circle of folks that already like you, already trust you, already know that you're a capable person. And so you look at those folks and you start talking to them. What do you need? If you could change something about your life, what would you change? What would you let go of that perhaps could be something that would be a service that could be offered for profit?
And that's a genuine empathy, Clay. I suggest it's not just, I'm going to ask questions so I can get an assignment, right? There has to be something genuinely human and caring about that other person. It's not just generating a cash flow for yourself, right?
Right. No, and every successful business grows out of passion and compassion. People are looking for a need. It's not just, oh, wow, I can make a lot of money doing that. Those businesses usually don't go anywhere. Even if you listen to, interviews with Mark Zuckerberg that started Facebook, one of the most profitable businesses in the world right now, and most highly valued in the world. There was a need that he needed to fill, and he had no thought that it would ever become what it's become.
Right. You're not thinking about the money. You're thinking about the person who is, let's just say, your future customer. Though when you meet this person and you're exploring yourself, you're my listener, you're exploring yourself and your situation in the larger economy. Clay Posey, you're suggesting that there has to be compassion and passion, and that would be empathy. We could say, again, empathy is feeling the problems. Empathy, pathy is from patheos, or the idea of emotion, affection. You're asking, you having a feeling for the other person. You're trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, and that is by inquiry, by conversation, by patient observation, not rushing any connection you've made. You just let a conversation go on. Sometimes conversations go on long. You think, oh, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. Well, the conversation goes on, and suddenly something comes into view, but only because you were willing to listen, only because you were patient. You were willing for that person to speak, and you asked general questions, and you really cared. You genuinely cared. The listener.
And that's it, David. And I call that, when I'm training salespeople, or if I'm training entrepreneurs and how to approach their customers, we call that the discovery process. And what you are doing is maintaining that conversation, getting to know that prospective customer enough. If you get them talking, if you will be quiet and listen and get them talking, they will tell you what they need. They will tell you everything you need to know to be able to meet their needs with a product or service.
Now, we're talking with Clay Posey. Just quickly, Clay, I've got a listener who's he's got a meeting to get to. How can he reach you to find out more about your services as consultant for entrepreneurs?
He is welcome to give me a call, or you can give me an email. I will not charge you a thing for that phone call. I'm blessed to have a good job, but I'm always glad to initiate a conversation and give some free advice. My phone number is 706-273-0411, just like you call 411 for information. So that's 706-273-0411, or you can reach me by email by clay@clayposey.com.
How can my listener who has a job in a business, a job maybe, let's say, for 10 or 15 years in the same company, he's not sure of his status, he's not sure about the future of his industry in the national economy, how can he use his connections in his industry and in his field, though he is merely an employee, to create a possible consultancy? But what does he have to do to think in terms of the larger enterprise and not just his job in that company, Clay Posey?
Well, I think you have to look at the task that you do. You have a job title, but you also have some tasks that you do, and you have some things that you bring that are of value to that company. If you're bringing value to one company, what you're bringing is of value to a lot of companies. Businesses today, the cost of having an employee is extraordinary. If they can outsource that, if they can part-time that, it's what everybody calls the sharing economy. It used to be called subcontracting, but you can take those services that you offer, the value that you bring to your company. You're going to have to go to people that obviously are not competitors with your current employer if you like your job. But you can take that to those other companies and say, hey, I'm really good in sales. Can I help you with sales? I'm really good in accounting. Can I help you with accounting or data entry or writing or whatever it is? And do it on a part-time basis. And you're bringing value far in excess of your service and what you're going to charge them in money. You're going to give them more service because they don't have to have all the overhead of a full-time employee.
The employment model that we've known for decades, Clay Posey, is disintegrating under the pressure of the sharing economy. Is that true?
I'd say that's really true.
How does that work? How's that working? What is the dynamic of that disintegration?
Well, for a long time, and we saw this happen after World War II, and we had all the vets coming back. We go back that far in history, and these companies were growing, and subdivisions were being built around cities, and jobs were being created, and the companies were competing for a scarce workforce. And what happened is they started offering benefits like health insurance, like retirement plans to attract the best and brightest for their companies. Well, they attracted those folks. That became the new norm. And so now it's expected. We all feel entitled to that when we go, but it's not a sustainable model. Things have now gone from being very large and very complex and very unwieldy to it's back to local. If you go down to the Tennessee Pavilion and look at the people that are down there that are craftspeople, some are making soap and some are bringing produce they grew in their own garden. The economies are becoming very micro now, and all the communication tools we have help that. And so businesses are finding ways to automate a lot of processes. They don't need all those employees that they needed back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And so they're shedding jobs to survive.
And how should my listener think about himself in that context, Clay?
Well, there again, you can participate in this local micro economy. You don't have to have customers on the other side of the world, but if you do, you've got the internet to help you with that. Look at the people that are around you. Look at your neighbors. It's a good idea to know your neighbors anyway. Most of us don't know the people who live in the houses on the left and right and across the street. Get to know those folks and ask those genuine questions. You know, what hurts in your life? What's a problem that you're having in your life? And suddenly you find you have a solution. So that's a good way to start. If you are crafty, if you like doing something that's maybe you like working with wood and you like to build birdhouses, build a few, take them down to the Tennessee Pavilion, take them to your local flea market and see if there's a demand for that. You like tinkering, somebody's got a chainsaw that won't crank or they've got a weed eater that won't run. You might find you have a real knack for that. And you begin to build those relationships, because if you make that customer happy, they will bring you other customers.
And you might have several lines that you, the listener, develop in several areas.
Right. You have to think, you don't just have to think outside the box. You have to forget that there is a box. You know, the radio show that follows yours today, she started a sharing economy business, and I was privileged to kind of help her think through the initial part of that, doing marketing, because it's expensive to have a marketer, and a small business can't afford that, but several small businesses together can afford to have that person marketing.
And we're talking about Cindy's Choice with Cindy Deering in just a few minutes. We're talking with Clay Posey, who is an entrepreneur and a small business development specialist. And the question my listener wants to ask you, Clay, since he hasn't called, our number is this. The number, by the way, is 800-8949, 800-8949 if you have a quick question. But here's a question that another listener wants to ask. The difference between starting a business and starting a service. The problem with starting a business, it sounds so daunting. It sounds just impossible. It's terrifying to hear a suggestion, you need to start a business. What's your alternative suggestion, Clay?
Well, starting a business does sound scary, because you think, I got to go leave office space, and then I got to deal with the government and get all this other stuff out of the way, and I got to buy insurance, and someday all those things may need to happen. But starting a service is saying, I'm going to help somebody. And again, to go back to my daughter, what I told her was, you know what? You don't need to think about starting a catering business or a personal chef business. You need to have fun with this. You need to see if you like cooking for somebody else on a deadline as much as you like making dinner for your family every night. And so she started it off. Well, she found out she had a knack for it. She did enjoy it. She was good at it, and she knows she's good at it because people started raving about it.
Tell us about one of your clients, Clay.
Well, I mentioned Cindy as one. I had another one that was an engineer. He was actually pointed to me by a professor at UTC. And he had this great idea for doing 3D printing and printing models for the medical industry to help doctors do a better job. He had a fantastic idea. He had the technology, and he certainly was an expert engineer. But what he told me in our initial conversation is, he said, I understand the engineering on this. I know exactly what this product needs to look like, and I'm clueless about starting a business. I don't know what to do with this great idea that I have. And so that was where I came in. And
what happened?
Well, he actually ended up with I don't know if a fellowship is the right word, working with the company lab, CoLab here in Chattanooga, and became a startup in that incubator. And there's so many tools available for businesses large and small like that. Ended up being winning an award from Chattanooga Technology Council for being the most promising business that was in that class and being on the cutting edge in technology. It's an ongoing business concern today, and it just took just a little nudge and a little bit of support and coaching, to get going in the right direction with that.
And the coaching you provided, Clay Posey, is on the business side, not, you might say, the trade, or in that case, the science side of that medical project.
Right. I barely understand the engineering and the technology that goes into taking something like that and making it happen, but I do know how to build a business, and the principles for creating a business model are the same. And it doesn't matter if you're an accountant or you're a hairdresser or you're a surgeon or you're an engineer, getting that service going, the same business principles always apply.
compared to other cities, is Chattanooga good and strong in its ideas of local economy? Is there a strong local economy, or are somehow we inflicted by national economy, national brands, national debt, national currency, Clay?
You know, the greatest thing, David, about Chattanooga is Chattanooga has this local mindset. If you go in the restaurants here, particularly if you go in the locally owned and operated restaurants, that server is going to walk up to your table and they're going to say, well, tonight's special features these greens, and they were grown at this farm, and it's got this chicken, and it was grown at this farm, and everything that goes into your meal that ends up on your plate was locally sourced. That just seems to be the mindset here. We have our own whiskey now. We have craft beers. We have, I can tell you from having lived in Midtown Atlanta, we have better restaurants than Atlanta has, and these are all entrepreneurial ventures that grew up here. And we have technological infrastructure, and we have business support infrastructure, from a lot of people like me to things like the CoLab, things like the Small Business Development Center, things like that are startup centers to help people figure out. CoLab runs a program called Will It Float? And it's simply to be able to take your idea to a group of other people who are thinking about starting a business and saying, will this work? Can we make this a business? So yes, we have a local economy that really is unparalleled. The technology that we have here, the gigabit internet that we have, is huge. If you're into the tech side of things and you want to build a business that involves that, the infrastructure we have here is better than just about anywhere else in the country.
The idea of local economy, Clay Posey, that I espouse is personal economics, personal dealings, favor the local over the national or the international. Is that really just being prejudicial, though? Is there something sort of bigoted and narrow-minded? Is it a kind of inverse of President Trump's national, economic nationalism, or because it is local and it is personal? Is there something that's really true about the idea of local economy, lococentrism, thinking of doing business locally and satisfying yourself and your clients in a local context?
Well, I think it's really the same thing as what President Trump is doing. You look at it like an onion. President Trump is saying, we're going to fix America first, and then you can bring that down, and we're going to take care of Tennessee, and then you can bring that down, we're going to take care of Chattanooga, and ultimately I'm going to take care of my family, and I'm going to fix my personal economy. And if I make my family strong, then that means I'm a support system. I'm a giver, not a taker. I'm producing instead of siphoning off, and I'm not waiting on somebody else to come solve my problems for me.
The internet is intergalactic. It is global. On the internet, Clay Posey, there's no here, right? There's no here. There's no there, if you will. And so it would seem that the internet delocalizes business. It uproots business from a particular place. It ends the slavery of place, the slavery of geography. On the other hand, I mean, those are kind of negative comments about it. But on the other hand, it does allow the sharing economy, which can be hyper local. And you mentioned the Tackle app. Can you discuss just briefly how the sharing economy online can create local connections and a lococentric hub for business?
Well, that's exactly what apps like Tackle. And if somebody's taking notes, there's Tackle. There's another one called Thumbtack. If you're a driver, there's Uber. And yeah, these are global platforms, but they're global platforms that are connecting you to people who are just down the street. Because you go on there looking for a service provider, and suddenly you have somebody local that you can talk to if you're the customer. If you're the service provider, you're putting it out there, but you're telling them, hey, I only want to talk to people in Chattanooga, or maybe you only want to talk to people in Hickson. You don't want to talk to all of Chattanooga. And so you can pull it down and refine it just as much as you want to get that personal connection made. Because the thing I see in day-to-day life is people now more than ever are craving relationships. We've got all this. You've got your Facebook account, you've got your Twitter account, you've got your LinkedIn account if you're into that as well. But it's all impersonal. It's all very, very far away. And people are craving that one-to-one interaction in their business dealings as well as their personal life. And so if they've got somebody that looks like them, thinks like them, feels like them, talks like them, and that they can see and interact with, that's the missing piece in that big technology economy.
The impersonal internet, we're complaining about Facebook and LinkedIn and so on, and creating sort of shallow connections, networks. The internet is really all about networks and not community. But you're saying, it sounds like what you're saying, is that community, real identification with people who are proximate to you, near you, is possible on these networks. We can use these networks to have personal economics. We can use these networks to have personal, local economy, local-centric dealings are possible.
Right. I look at them, David, as their tools. When you have a toolbox and you're going out to do work on somebody's house, I'm speaking from my own experience, and I show up with my toolbox. I've got hammers, I've got screwdrivers, I've got saws, I've got a drill in there, and that's my toolbox. Well, you've got a set of business tools too. So you look at that app that you can put a business listing up on, that's a tool. It will never take the place of that personal interaction, but it's a tool to get you to connected quickly with that person who has a need. But then you need that relationship to be built. You need to be authentic, because you can put anything up on the internet. If I wanted to create a dating site on the internet, suddenly I'd be 28 and very good looking, and I've got a face made for radio, and now radio is live on streaming online too. So there you go. But you can't hide behind that when you're dealing with local economy, and that's what people are looking for.
You're suggesting, Clay Posey, an expansion of the personal connections online in these many fields. You didn't mention Airbnb, but that's also a way where a private owner of a house can make a revenue stream and provide a service to all kinds of people globally who come to Chattanooga. So we have the internet allowing the creation of value in a local context. What is that? What is implied in that trend against claims by the state, by government, of we have to provide this service for, let's say, education, which is highly centralized and highly in the legacy economy?
Well, you kind of hit on my hot button there, and things always function better when they're decentralized, and power tends to accumulate at the top, and so you do have the government that wants to be the be all and end all. I can tell you, looking at what's going on with Harvey right now, government resources are overwhelmed. They're about to be really overwhelmed here in a couple of days when this next storm makes landfall in Florida, and there's another storm coming right behind that. And
social media will be a boon to anybody who's involved in helping those suffering under Irma.
It'll be a critical communication tool, because you'll be able to, through the Red Cross website or through Facebook, you can check in and say, I'm safe, and now all your friends know that you're okay. And it's also key for service providers like ServPro to be able to get in and coordinate. We rely heavily on that to be able to coordinate all the many independent franchises to be able to go into an area like that and perform service.
This is David Tulis. Our program today is brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Take a look at Nooganomics.com. There's a newsletter of which I'm the unknown editor, and that's called Esprit, which means spirit in French, esprit as we would say in English. And it is all about education. Find out more about this wonderful newsletter. It is now an e-zine, and you can download, you can look at it online. Go to Nooganomics.com, see my latest post there, and you can subscribe to that. Also, just subscribe to Nooganomics.com. It's free. It's not a popular website because it is for the people who matter, and I think in the end there are very few people who matter, 5%, 6%, and I hope you, my listener, are among those. Clay Posey, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
We are AM 1240, FM 92.7. Thank you. Thank you.